Okay. Thank you.
I'm up on live view 1 with the Attorney General.
I'm going to do another check for everybody that just recently patched in. Sarah sitting down in this last row. You got me? Great. Ma'am in the back on the pressurizer. You got me? Check 1, 2. Great. Thank you.
I am on live view 1.
They had still our message.
Hey. How you doing? Yeah. Out of your way, right? Where's the mobile?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Okay, great. Thanks.
I'm just calling you to let you know that we are really all set. They will give us a 10-minute warning, and when they do that, I'll let you guys know as well. I'm all set up. I'm not fired up because I don't want to waste time.
I just thought I was like,
everyone is it's all set. So good to know it's fired up. Yes, just there's no need for check that. Okay, thanks.
But again, I'll flip it off. So
Yeah, let me. I'm going to have to ask, are you without control? No, okay, this one, I'm going to ask them to fire up. Max, bravo. Is your point? I like you to I'm going to have to write this down. Channel 1. Channel 1 is going to be a mic for SIF. Heavy SIF. Channel 2 is going to be a mic from both itself. Channel 2. It's okay. So make channel 2 channel 2. That's good. That's good.
No, not yet. Jeremy hasn't signed it yet.
Okay, let me go and
Yeah,
ask.
I'll
Let me go. I'm going to go ask.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good.
So, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Adam, like with talking about going through the report. Yeah, yeah.
It's all good here.
Okay.
Set up. I will set up and there will be a 10-minute heads up. Not when they do say, you know, they do tell us that you know.
I would have looked up. Like, what am I looking like? I'm just like, I'm trying to take my good side, you know?
Because I got better ones. These stick. I got like metal.
There was a lot of pop over.
More so the ability for most. And if you can, even here, you can do it. What is the delay?
Yeah, I don't know if I missed part of the how to do it.
Yeah, this goes exactly, just a little, maybe 0.6, but that's everything needs to let Hey, that's it. They would love to have that. You didn't say this one.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. This is for everybody that just recently patched in. Gentleman in the blue shirt, when you're seeing levels, just give me a thumbs up. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. You see me? Great. Awesome.
Is ABC national here? What about Fox National? No? Another quick question. Who planned on carrying this live? You guys, CNN? Still here, WNBC? Everyone? Okay. I mean, you guys should.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. It's okay with my mask on right here? Like, you can hear fine?
Sure you would. Don't worry about it. When you see me get up to 11:30.
He's doing double duty, 2 jobs.
We have.
A lot more like
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I saw it now.
I say open all the shades.
Will this be on time? We're trying. It's 2-minute warning.
I will give everybody hopefully a 2 minute and 5
10,
minutes.
2.
I mean, it's okay.
We're going to do a countdown for us. 3.
Yeah, of course.
We're not at 10.
We are almost at there. Justice, so is it justice for all should need a password?
No, it is. Equal justice does.
Okay, so let's try that. I think. Or that you can try equal justice. Justice for all. Okay, yeah. Maybe. Yes, so she's gonna take questions. Yes.
And will she be the only one that speaks?
That was slick though. I appreciate that.
Is June Kim going to be here? Will June Kim and Park speak as well before the question?
Just ask.
You could clarify that.
And you know what? If I could, I would.
Okay, thank you.
Guess. So I don't know. I just guess. Number 1 at yes.
Saying special investigator, special investigator. Oh, yeah.
Shasha, you're not ready to right?
Yeah, just now.
I know, that's what I told him. Well, I don't think they asked because they were just going to pay for, like, you could send yours later and they would settle it. I think they're now realizing, which I kind of like you said, you should have a contact. Which is not property, but anyway. Sure. Eventually, you're going to come back to me. They're going to say,
We're at about 5 minutes, give or take.
I think there's some work.
Oh.
We're going to try to give you as much time as we can. So we're at about 5 minutes right now. Hopefully we'll give you at least a 30-second warning. Good? Yeah. It was really good. Hello. How are you?
okay. Nowhere I'm like.
a heads up. Yeah.
I'll be down there and then send to her. There you go.
How much time now?
I think they just said it was less than. They gave a 5-minute warning. You're gonna mix this up. Yeah, you're good. I mean, if you're not talking, yeah. I'm sorry. Did somebody tell you? No.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, then everyone's in the same boat. Yep, everyone's in the same boat. We'll give everyone a 1-minute heads up, okay? That will be soon.
So where did you park exactly? Like when I saw you, we were
She's
just
all set up. Don't worry about it.
No,
As
but-
soon as we walk out, it's parked there.
Huh?
As we walk out, it's parked right there. We're good.
I know, but I have to go before you leave, so I need to get Jack
Just walk out, we'll be right there.
right on the corner where I gotta.
Soon enough, we'll require a vaccine, I'm sure. Was it just gyms and restaurants today? I didn't actually see it or listen to it. But you guys have one in your building or somewhere? A mandate?
countdown. The next person who comes to the store will be immediately and can start. I know 13 minutes, but I think
Good morning.
I'm joined here today by Ann Clark and June Kim, the two lead attorneys who were designated as special deputies to the Attorney General's office to announce the findings of their investigation into allegations of sexual harassment made against Governor Andrew Cuomo. I'll make a brief statement and then turn it over to Ms. Clark and to Mr. Kim, who will delve into the investigation's findings. The independent investigation has concluded that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women and in doing so violated federal and state law. Specifically, the investigation found that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed current and former New York State employees by engaging in unwelcome and non-consensual touching and making numerous offensive comments of a suggestive and sexual nature that created a hostile work environment for women. The investigators independently corroborated and substantiated these facts through interviews and evidence, including contemporaneous notes and communications. This evidence will be made available to the public along with the report. This investigation was started after a number of women publicly alleged that they had been sexually harassed by Governor Cuomo. And on March 1st of this year, the governor's office made a referral to my office pursuant to State Executive Law 63.8 regarding these allegations. Executive Law Section 63.8 permits the New York Attorney General's office, with the approval of the governor, or when directed by the governor, to inquire into matters concerning the public peace, the public safety, and public justice. This referral issued by the governor enabled my office to appoint independent outside investigators to look into these allegations. And on March 8th, 2021, Ann Clark and June Kim, they were officially deputized as special deputies. Ms. Clark and Mr. Kim and their respective firms were chosen to lead this investigation because of their decades of work at the highest levels, their deep expertise on matters in question, and their careers fighting to uphold the rule of law. Ann Clark is a partner at Vladnick, Raskin & Clark PC, where she focuses on employment law issues on behalf of employees at the trial and appellate levels. And during her more than 30-year career, Ms. Clark has represented clients in a variety of employment, sexual harassment, and other discrimination cases in the private sector, in education, and in government. She also has deep experience with retaliation, whistleblower, breach of contract, and compensation and benefit cases. June Kim is a partner at Cleary, Gottlieb, Steen, and Hamilton, LLP. And for more than 2 decades, he has worked at the highest levels of government and in private practice. From March 2017 to January 2018, he served as the acting United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. As the most senior federal law enforcement officer in the district, he oversaw all criminal and civil litigation conducted on behalf of the United States. Before becoming acting United States Attorney, Mr. Kim served in various leadership positions in the office, including Deputy United States Attorney, Chief of the Criminal Division, and Chief Counsel to the United States Attorney. Ms. Clark and Mr. Kim are experienced, credible, and deeply respected professionals. And together, they ensured that this investigation was both independent and thorough. Over the course of the 5-month investigation, the investigators spoke to 179 individuals, including complainants, current and former members of the executive chamber, state troopers, additional state employees, and others who interacted regularly with the governor. In addition, they reviewed more than 74,000 pieces of evidence, including documents, emails, texts, audio files, and pictures. These interviews and pieces of evidence reveal a deeply disturbing yet clear picture. Governor Cuomo sexually harassed current and former state employees in violation of both federal and state laws. The independent investigation found that Governor Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, many of whom were young women, by engaging in unwanted groping, kisses, hugging, and by making inappropriate comments. Further, the governor and his senior team took actions to retaliate against at least one former employee for coming forward with her story, her truth. And Governor Cuomo's administration fostered a toxic workplace that enabled harassment and created a hostile work environment where staffers did not feel comfortable coming forward with complaints about sexual harassment due to a climate of fear and given the power dynamics. The investigators found that Governor Cuomo's actions and those of the executive chamber violated multiple state and federal laws, as well as the executive chamber's own written policies. This investigation has revealed conduct that corrodes the very fabric and character of our state government and shines light on injustice that can be present at the highest levels of government. But none of this would have been illuminated if not for the heroic women who came forward. And I am inspired by all the brave women who came forward. But more importantly, I believe them. And I thank them for their bravery. And I thank the independent investigators for their professionalism, despite the attacks, and for their dogged determination that brought us to the truth. And now we will hear from June Kim and Ann Clark, who will walk us through the report and their findings.
Thank you, Attorney General James. Good morning. My name is June Kim, and along with my colleague, Ann Clark, we have led teams at our two law firms in conducting the investigation into allegations of sexual harassment by Governor Cuomo. We have now completed our investigation and have made our findings and reached our conclusions. They're set forth in a detailed report issued today. As set forth in the report, we find that the governor, on numerous occasions, engaged in conduct that constitutes unlawful sex-based harassment. Specifically, we find that the governor sexually harassed a number of current and former New York State employees. He did so by, among other things, engaging in unwelcome and non-consensual touching, and also repeatedly making comments of a sexualized or gender-based nature. Our investigation revealed that these were not isolated incidents. They were part of a pattern. The governor's pattern of sexually harassing behavior was not limited to members of his own staff, but extended to other state employees, including a state trooper who served on his protective detail. There are 11 complainants whose allegations are set forth in great detail in the report. 9 of them are or were employed by the state of New York or a state-affiliated entity. The complainants interacted with the governor under different circumstances. For example, some of them met with him regularly as an executive assistant, or as members of his staff, or as I said, as a trooper on his protective detail, while others only met him once. But all of them experienced harassing conduct from the governor. Some suffered through unwanted touching and grabbing of their most intimate body parts. Others suffered through repeated, offensive, sexually suggestive, or gender-based comments. A number of them endured both. None of them welcomed it, and all of them found it disturbing, humiliating, uncomfortable, and inappropriate. And now we find that it was unlawful sex-based harassment. Our investigation has also found that the executive chamber responded to allegations of sexual harassment in ways that violated their own internal policies, and also constituted unlawful retaliation with respect to one of the complainants. And finally, based on our investigation, we concluded that the executive chamber's workplace culture, one rife with bullying, fear, and intimidation on the one hand, while normalizing frequent flirtations and gender-based comments by the governor on the other, created the conditions that allowed the sexual harassment and retaliation to occur and to persist. As the Attorney General has said, we reached these findings and conclusions after a thorough and independent investigation. We were allowed to, and did, follow the facts without fear, without favor. As you will see in the report, our findings are supported by extensive evidence. That includes interviews and testimony from 179 witnesses and review of tens of thousands of documents. I'll now turn it over to my colleague Ann Clark to walk through some of the specifics related to the sexual harassment, the policy violations, and the retaliation.
We find that the governor on many occasions engaged in sex-based harassing conduct and conversations. The most serious was the governor's unwelcome physical contact with women, including touching intimate body parts. He engaged in this conduct with state employees, including those who didn't work in the executive chamber, as well as non-employees. One current employee, who we identify as Executive Assistant Number 1, endured repeated physical violations. On November 16, 2020, in the Executive Mansion, the governor hugged Executive Assistant Number 1 and reached under her blouse to grab her breast. This was the culmination of a pattern of inappropriate sexual conduct, including numerous close and intimate hugs, where the governor held her so closely that her breasts were pressed against his body, and he sometimes ran his hands up and down her back while he did so. There were also several occasions on which the governor grabbed her butt. Executive Assistant Number 1 had vowed that she was going to take these violations, as she put it, to the grave. She was terrified that if she spoke out, she would lose her job. But she broke down in front of colleagues when she heard the governor on March 3, 2021, in his press conference claim that he had never touched anyone inappropriately. She then confided in her coworkers who saw her break down as to what had happened, and they were the ones that reported the conduct to attorneys in the executive chamber. The governor also several times inappropriately touched a state trooper assigned to the unit to protect the governor. In an elevator, while standing behind the trooper, he ran his finger from her neck down her spine and said, "Hey, you." Another time, she was standing holding the door open for the governor. As he passed, he took his open hand and ran it across her stomach from her belly button to the hip where she keeps her gun. She told us that she felt completely violated to have the governor touch her, as she put it, between her chest and her privates. The governor also inappropriately touched women who were attending work-related events at which the governor made remarks. At one event in September 2019, while having his picture taken with an employee of a state entity, the governor grabbed this young woman's butt. At another event in May of 2017, the governor pressed and ran his fingers across the chest of a woman while reading the name of her company, whose logo was on her chest. The governor also engaged in a widespread pattern of subjecting women to unwanted hugs and kisses and touching them in ways that made them uncomfortable. Conduct that is not just old-fashioned, affectionate behavior, as he and some of his staff members would have it, but unlawful sex-based harassment. In addition to the physical conduct, our investigation found that the governor regularly made comments to staff members and state employees that were offensive and gender-based. For example, the governor crossed the line many times when speaking with Charlotte Bennett, a briefer and executive assistant, particularly in spring of 2020. When she confided in the governor that she had been sexually assaulted in college, he asked her for the details of her assault. When talking about potential girlfriends, he said he thought he could date women as young as 22, knowing that Miss Bennett was 25 at the time. He asked her whether she had ever been with older men. He told her that he was lonely and wanted to be touched. He asked her if she was monogamous and what she thought about monogamy. He speculated on how her history as a sexual assault survivor might affect her romantic life. He told her that she looked like Daisy Duke. He suggested that she get a tattoo she was contemplating on her butt and asked her if she had any piercings anywhere other than her ears. Miss Bennett texted to a friend on the day where many of these comments were made that she was upset and confused and that she was shaking. Another example is the governor's comments to the state trooper, the same trooper he touched on the stomach and back. After the governor had become single, he asked the trooper how old she was. When she responded that she was in her late 20s, he said, "That's too old for him." He then asked her how much of an age difference he thought he could have between him and a girlfriend and have the public still accept it. She suggested it might be a good idea to stick with women at least as old as your daughters. She then tried to deflect the conversation by asking the governor what he was looking for in a girlfriend. He responded that he was looking for somebody who could handle pain. Another time, when the governor found out that the trooper was engaged, he asked her why she'd want to get married because, among other things, your sex drive goes down. As detailed in the report, employees recounted a pattern of similarly offensive comments and conversations, such as the governor repeatedly asking Executive Assistant Number 1 whether she would cheat on her husband, saying to her, "If you were single, the things I would do to you," telling her that she looked great for her age, which was early 30s, and for a mother, calling her and coworker Alyssa McGrath mingle mamas, comparing Lindsay Boylan to a more attractive version of one of his ex-girlfriends and to actresses. Women also described to us having the governor seek them out, stare intently at them, look them up and down, or gaze at their chest or butt. In sum, the governor routinely interacted with women in ways that focused on their gender, sometimes in explicitly sexualized manner, in ways that women found deeply humiliating and offensive. Both federal and state law prohibit gender-based harassment in the workplace. In fact, the governor himself, in August of 2019, passed a law that eliminated in New York State the requirement that harassing conduct needed to be severe or pervasive. In New York, a woman need only show that she was treated less well, at least in part, because of her gender. The governor's conduct, detailed in the report, clearly meets and far exceeds this standard. We also find that the executive chamber failed to follow its own harassment policies and procedures, ones that on paper are consistent with New York legal requirements. This was exemplified by the handling of Charlotte Bennett's complaint. In June of 2020, Ms. Bennett told the governor's chief of staff about recent conversations of a sexual nature that were so uncomfortable that she no longer wanted to interact with the governor. The chief of staff relayed Ms. Bennett's complaints to others in the governor's inner circle and transferred Ms. Bennett within days. 2 weeks later, the chief of staff and a special counsel spoke with Ms. Bennett, who detailed interactions with the governor that went back to May of 2019. The Chief of Staff and Special Counsel both found Ms. Bennett to be credible. The Chief of Staff consulted with the Special Counsel and with Melissa DeRosa, the Secretary to the Governor, and they decided they did not need to report this to the Governor's Office of Employee Relations, GOER, or conduct any meaningful investigation. They simply moved Ms. Bennett and instituted a policy of not having a junior staffer be alone with the governor, and even that, they said, was to protect the governor. That response, we find, was a violation of the Executive Chamber's harassment policy, which clearly requires that all possible harassment be reported to GOER and investigated. Now, 6 months later, in December of 2020, when Lindsay Boylan tweeted that she had been sexually harassed by the governor, the Executive Chamber once again failed to report the issue to GOER. Although Ms. DeRosa, the Special Counsel, and certain other advisors knew about the allegations that Charlotte Bennett had made that the Special Counsel had found credible, no one treated Ms. Boylan's allegations seriously other than as a threat to the governor. Rather than any effort to determine if the governor had engaged in a pattern of sexually harassing behavior, a team of senior staffers, former staffers, and outside confidants with no official title or role mobilized to attack and try to neutralize Ms. Boylan by sharing disparaging information with the press. Within hours of Ms. Boylan's December 13, 2020 tweet alleging sexual harassment, key members of the governor's inner circle had obtained confidential memos, ones that were stamped attorney-client privileged. They were primarily about an interaction between Ms. Boylan and an assistant. They then redacted the names of individuals other than Ms. Boylan and started sending the memos to reporters. There was also a proposed letter or op-ed drafted by the governor that went through several drafts. The letter attacked Ms. Boylan for alleged conduct at work, for alleged conduct with men other than the governor, as well as postulating various political conspiracies, including that Ms. Boylan was funded by far-right Republicans and supporters of Donald Trump. Although the letter was never published, it was sent or read to a variety of people outside the executive chamber, either to get their advice or ask them to sign their names to it, and shared ultimately with at least one member of the press. The governor was arguing for the release of that letter. He was finally convinced to abandon it by a number of people who thought the letter was a bad idea, in part because what was in the letter couldn't be substantiated and because they thought that victim shaming would be bad as a strategy. Both federal and state law prohibit an employer from taking any action that would dissuade a reasonable employee or former employee from making or supporting a charge of discrimination. Under that standard, the confidential release of internal records to the press and the dissemination of the letter disparaging Ms. Boylan constituted unlawful retaliation. I will now turn it back to Mr. Kim to say a few words about our findings with respect to the workplace culture within the executive chamber.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. As set forth in our report, we find that the culture within the executive chamber contributed to the conditions that allowed the governor's sexually harassing conduct to occur and to persist. The culture also informed the way in which the executive chamber responded to allegations of sexual harassment, as Ms. Clark has described, through violations of their own policies and through unlawful retaliation. Well, what was the culture? Words that witnesses have used repeatedly to describe it include toxic, hostile, abusive. Others use words like fear, intimidation, bullying, vindictive. As one senior staffer stated bluntly, as the sexual harassment allegations became public in March of this year in text exchanges with another in the in the administration, I quote, "Hopefully, when this is all done, people will realize the culture, even outside of the sexual harassment stuff, is not something you can get away with. You can't berate and terrify people 24/7, close quote. It was a culture where you could not say no to the governor. And if you upset him or his him or his senior staff, you will be written off, cast aside, or worse. But at the same time, the witnesses described a culture that normalized and overlooked everyday flirtations, physical intimacy, and inappropriate comments by the governor. One senior staffer testified that at a work event, she sat on the governor's lap. Another staffer said she recalled kissing the governor on the lips. The governor testified that those things may have happened with senior staffers. One complainant described her interactions with the governor by saying they were, quote, strange and uncomfortable. But it was like the Twilight Zone. The typical rules did not apply. You should just view it as a compliment if the governor finds you aesthetically pleasing enough, close quote. The coexistence in the executive chamber's culture of fear and flirtation, intimidation and intimacy, abuse and affection, created a work environment ripe for harassment. As another complainant testified, and I quote, "What makes it so hard to describe every single inappropriate incident is the culture of the place. On the one hand, he makes all this inappropriate and creepy behavior normal, and like you should not complain. On the other hand, you see people getting punished and screamed at if you do anything where you disagree with him or his top aides. I really just wanted to go to work and be recognized for my work and nothing else," close quote. Charlotte Bennett, the complainant Ms. Clark mentioned, who was transferred after she reported inappropriate comments by the governor to senior staff, summarized her experience in a text message as follows, quote, "The verbal abuse, intimidation, and living in constant fear were all horribly toxic, dehumanizing, and traumatizing. And then he came on to me. I was scared to imagine what would happen if I rejected him, so I disappeared instead. My time in public service ended because he was bored and lonely. It still breaks my heart." That's a quote from a text that Ms. Bennett wrote. This culture made it all the more difficult, if not impossible, for complainants to report the harassment from which they were suffering, particularly when the harasser was the governor of the state of New York. But one by one courageous woman after another stepped forward. They stepped forward to say, enough is enough. They came forward in our investigation to tell us about their experiences, the harassment they suffered at the hands of the governor. In our report, we've used their words. And their words, so long silenced, speak loudly for themselves. These brave women stepped forward to speak truth to power. And in doing so, they expressed faith in the belief that although the governor may be powerful, the truth is even more so. This is what lies at the heart of our investigation and the findings in our report.
We will now take questions, and the questioning will be directed by Delaney Kempner.
Please say your name and your outlet.
Marcia Kramer from CBS. I wondered if you could tell me if the governor will be facing any, I know this is a civil investigation, but were you making any referrals to prosecutors so that he could face either state or federal charges?
Our work is concluded, and the document is now public. and the matter is civil in nature and is not, does not have any criminal consequences. It is my understanding.
I will state that it's our understanding that for the young woman whose breast was groped, that the Albany Police Department already has a report about that. As for anything else, as the Attorney General stated, all the information is fully documented in the report, and any prosecutors or police departments can look at the evidence and determine if they want to take further action.
Josefa? Hi, Josefa Velasquez, the city. Now that this report is concluded, will your office be sharing it with the Assembly's committee that is investigating whether or not these are impeachable offenses, and if so, what's the coordination between the office and the Assembly?
There is no coordination between the Office of Attorney General and the Assembly. The document is now public and will be distributed to members of the Assembly as well as the leadership.
Ms. James, can the governor
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, Bernadette Hogan from the New York Post. Can the governor be sued in any way? Is there a statute of limitations, or are there any penalties specifically tied to this report? I know Ms. Clark can.
Sure. There's no penalty specifically tied to this report. The women can decide, some of the women can decide themselves if they want to bring a civil action. The statute of limitations is generally 3 years under one federal statute and the state law, and a little bit shorter under another federal statute, although for hostile work environments, as long as one act occurs within the statute of limitations, one can go back to cover the entire hostile work environment.
And in regards to the violation against the executive chamber's own policy, what kind of violations could be?
I can't think of a specific law that would violate, but that certainly is taken into account in determining liability for sexual harassment.
Dave Owens with Channel 7. Ms. James, can I ask you, do you think the governor, given the devastating nature of this report, and I get what you're saying about it's up to local prosecutors if they want to move forward on this, but do you think that this would all be wrapped up well if you would resign, leave?
That decision ultimately is up to the governor of the state of New York. The report speaks for itself. And right now I think we should all be focused on the courageous and bravery of the women who came forward. And all of us should be focused on keeping women safe, believing women, and allowing women to speak their truth. And that's exactly what this document does.
Andrew Siv from WNBC. You mentioned in your opening remarks today defending the credentials of your investigators today. Were you personally bothered by the governor's own remarks in the past week or so that you could just Google their backgrounds and draw your own conclusion that this is a politically motivated investigation?
There were attempts to undermine and to politicize this investigation. And there were attacks on me as well as members of the team, which I find offensive. And our focus, again, should be on the bravery and the courage of these 11 women and of the others who came forward. These allegations were substantiated. They were corroborated. And the team before you, Ms. Clark and Mr. Kim, are professionals who are widely respected, not only in New York, but all across this nation. And I support their work, will defend their work, and I believe these women.
Zach?
Zach Fink from New York One. You mentioned that it corroborated a lot of what the witness testimony was, who you spoke with during the investigation. When you interviewed Governor Cuomo, did he admit to or deny the majority of what was said here?
There was a combination. There are some incidents that he admitted to but had a different interpretation of, and there were other things that he denied or said he didn't recall.
Speak a little bit more about that. When WNYC, can you speak a little bit more about what that conversation, that 11-hour conversation was like the other week?
I can't recount all 11 hours of it. As I said, there were certain things, like he admitted that he asked Ms. Bennett whether she had been involved with older men. He denied touching the state trooper, although he said he might have kissed her at an event. And there were certain things that he turned around and said that, for example, the executive assistant number 1, that he did hug her repeatedly, but claimed she was the one who initiated the hugs. So it was a mixture of admitting to certain things but putting a different spin on them and denying others.
People outlined in the report.
Shimon Prokopetz from CNN. So what are the next steps here? You have this report, obviously a lot of devastating information in it. A lot of people are going to ask, okay, so what happens next? And you're not referring it for criminal charges. What are the next steps that you would like to see, perhaps maybe the assembly take or someone else take to have some other kind of punishment or something else here? Because right now it just seems like you have this report and it's out there, and what would be the next steps?
We were tasked with the responsibility of engaging in an investigation, and we have concluded our investigation, and our work is done. And so as it relates to next steps, that's entirely up to the governor and or the assembly and the general public. But the work of the Office of the Attorney General and these special deputies has concluded.
Do you think the governor should run for re-election?
That's a political question. The work of the Office of the Attorney General is done.
Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions in here, and then we're going to go virtual.
Hi, Dana Rubenstein from the New York Times. This is a little bit of a hypothetical, but if an individual with a history of running a workplace like this were running for governor, would you consider that person fit to serve as the leader of New York State?
I don't engage in speculation, Dana. The report speaks for itself. They substantiated and corroborated the allegations and have issued findings that, in fact, the governor violated state and federal laws.
Okay, this is the last one here, and then we're going to go virtual.
Adam Reese, NBC News. As a prosecutor and as an attorney general, are you frustrated that you can't move criminally on these charges, numerous charges that you and the investigators have said are both that violate state and federal law?
It's not an issue of being frustrated. The issue, we were tasked with the responsibility by the governor of the state of New York to issue a report, and we have issued this report. And all throughout the process, we put our heads down, we've done our work, and at this point, we're going to allow the chips to fall where they may.
Okay, we're going to go virtual now. Fabian.
Thank you, everybody. If you have a question, please click the raise hand button. If you have a question, please click the raise hand button. First, we're going to hear from John Campbell from Gannett. John, your mic is open.
Hi, Attorney General. A couple questions, and I apologize. It's tough to hear some of the questions, so that some of these might be repeats here. But the investigation into the governor's book deal, as well as the staff resources that were used on that, does that remain ongoing? That's separate from this. Is it still ongoing? And also, can you make some sort of formal referral to prosecutors' offices based on this report today, or is that something that they would have to pick up the ball on their own?
The investigation with respect to the book and whether or not public resources were utilized is ongoing, and it's separate and apart from this investigation. And with regards to criminal jurisdiction usually is conveyed upon the Office of Attorney General. Usually we get a request under the executive law. And at this point in time, our work is concluded, and we will not be engaging in any criminal investigation with respect to the conduct of the governor of the state of New York.
Our second question is from Josh Dawsey from Washington Post. Josh, your line is open. Josh, you have to unmute your line.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you, Josh.
I said, hi, Attorney General.
Hi, Josh.
There appear to be about 11 allegations here, 11 different victims. Did you find all 11 of the victims who came forward to be credible, and were you able to find contemporaneous notes or proof about all 11 of the victims?
We found all 11 women to be credible. There was corroboration to varying degrees. Probably at the end of being most corroborated, Charlotte Bennett talked to people and texted people contemporaneously. Some of her texts were practically in real time regarding conversations with the governor. As well, the reports that she made to the chief of staff and the special counsel, their contemporaneous notes are quite consistent with what she has said to the press and what she told us. The state trooper, the touching incidents, the one where he touched her stomach was witnessed by another state trooper who confirmed it to us. The governor kissed her once. That was confirmed to us by another state trooper. And there were other incidents where she told people at the time. Other people that we spoke to did tell people at the time, and we confirmed with the people they spoke with, or had written documentation, either text messages or emails, in which they recounted things contemporaneously. So things when you see the report, everything is documented. Things were very well corroborated.
Our next question is from Emma Kinnery from Bloomberg News. Emma, your line is open.
Hello, thank you. I was wondering, you said that your work is done, but there's still a criminal matter in place. What will happen from there?
So I cannot speculate as to what will happen from external agencies and or external legislative bodies. That is entirely up to them. But as far as the Office of Attorney General is concerned, our office and our investigation has concluded we will be issuing this report along with evidence to the general public.
Our next question is from Brian Tarnelli from the New York Law Journal.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I know that there was mention of a report to the Albany Police Department regarding the groping incident. Can you specify if that was made by the executive chamber, or has the victim herself stepped forward and given a report to the Albany Police Department?
It's our understanding that the report was made by the executive chamber.
Our last question is from Rebecca Lewis from City and State. Rebecca, your line is open.
Hi, Attorney General. I just wanted to ask, with this report out now, you said that you're not going to speculate on whether the governor is fit to serve or if he should run again. What do you want the public to take away from this report?
That these 11 women were in a hostile and toxic work environment, and that we should believe women, and that what we have an obligation and a duty to do is to protect women in their workplace. And what this investigation revealed was a disturbing pattern of conduct by the governor of the great state of New York. And those who basically did not put in place any protocols or procedures to protect these young women who believed in public service. I believe women, and I believe these 11 women. I thank you all for being here this morning.